Hello, namaste everyone. Am I audible?
Yeah, ma'am.
Okay, fine. A very good afternoon to all of you. So moving on to another system, the second last system, that's the reproductive system. So we'll be studying about the anatomy and physiology of the male and female reproductive systems. So both the systems, the reproductive system in male and female, they are important because they help in procreation. They help in giving birth to a newborn. They help in giving birth, or they help in the formation of fetus and then the newborn. Due to its important function that through the system a couple is able to procreate, few scientists or few medicinists consider it to be an important system. This is the only system which differs in male and female with respect to the organs. With respect to the organs, this is the only system which differs in male and females. And as you all may be knowing that this particular system is not functioning until the age of puberty or until the onset of puberty. Next, male reproductive system, the major or one of the important functions or the vital functions is the delivery of the sperm to the female reproductive system. And the female reproductive system, it receives the sperm and helps in the fusion of the ovum, which is the female gamete. So fusion of the male and a female gamete takes place in the female reproductive system. Now coming to see what we study in reproductive system: gonads, ducts, glands, and supporting structures. And we all have come across gynecologists. So gynecology is the study of female reproductive system. Urology is the study of urinary system, and male reproductive system of late is andrology. Okay. So with this brief introduction, moving on to male reproductive system, you may see a few structures here. So you can just see the structures, and then I will explain the importance of each part in the further slides. Okay. So what you can see here is the testis. Okay. Encircling the testis is one more structure. Okay, that is nothing but the scrotum. And that plays an important role. Yes. Moving on to scrotum, it's a sac-like structure which is loosely held with the smooth muscles. What does this sacrum hold? It holds the testis. So what you can see here, see, there are a pair of scrotum. This is one pair. This is another pair. Okay, this scrotum. So here's the division. The scrotum holds the testis. This whole thing is the testis. The scrotum holds the testis. It is holding it loosely, and it's one of the important functions of this scrotum is it maintains the temperature below the normal temperature. Like assuming our body temperature is 38.4, so this will keep the temperature there to 36 or 35 degrees Celsius. Okay, so this maintaining a lower temperature helps in the survival of the sperm. Okay, now the loose muscles or the smooth muscles present in the scrotum, what do? They elevate testis on exposure to cold, and during arousal, warmth reverses the process. So during cold or during winter seasons, the testis is elevated, and or when there is exposure to sun or the temperature increases, then the warmth does not elevate the testis. Okay, so scrotum holds the testis. That's one important thing. Scrotum holds the testis, and testis prepares or testis manufactures the sperms. Now testis, paired oval glands measuring 2 inch by 1 inch. surrounded by dense white capsule. Surrounded by dense white capsule. Septa form 200 to 300 compartments of lobules. So here you can see septa. It's having one divisions. These divisions these are septa. Within these septa, we have this thing. One seminiferous tubules. Okay, seminiferous tubules. Each is filled with 2 or 3 seminiferous tubules where sperms are formed. Okay, where sperms are formed. Or you can just think, or you can just remember that it is that testis is a structure which is present in the scrotum, and this testis prepares the sperms, or the place where the sperms are formed is in the testis. Where in the testis? It is exactly in the seminiferous tubules. Okay, seminiferous tubules. Semen tubules, seminiferous tubules. Okay. Next, these seminiferous tubules contain sperm forming cells called Sertoli cells. Okay, sperm forming cells. Interstitial cells in between secrete testosterone. So one thing that the testis is the place where the sperms are formed. Along with that, it's a place where the tubules secrete the testosterone. This testosterone is nothing but it's a hormone. This testosterone is an hormone. Testosterone is an hormone. It's a male hormone. Testosterone is a male hormone. Okay. So first structure scrotum. See. This is scrotum. This is one side scrotum. Within that is the testis. Within that is the testis. Okay. In the testis, there is preparation or there's formation of sperm, and also there is formation of testosterone. There is formation of testosterone. Now, coming to what exactly sperm is. Okay, or how does the sperm look like? You can see it has a head, midpiece, and a tail. Head, midpiece, and tail. You can see clearly it's demarcated in the image. Head, midpiece, and tail. Okay, so this acrosome, the pointed structure, what you can see here is this acrosome helps in the penetration. Helps in the penetration. Okay, so adapted for reaching the fertilizing the egg. So this acrosome, mainly the acrosome helps in the penetration. Mainly acrosome helps in the penetration. And again, see here in the nucleus. So the head contains nucleus. So this nucleus, the content present in the nucleus will help in the fusion or will help in the fertilization of male and female gametes, of fusion of male and female gametes, will help in the fusion of male and female gametes. So next, coming to the midpiece, which has mitochondria. Midpiece which has mitochondria, which helps in or which releases the ATP. This ATP will serve as the powerhouse here, will give the energy. Okay, and next coming to the last part, that's the tail. Tail helps in the motility. Tail helps in the motility. So a head part helps in the penetration. Acrosome basically helps in the penetration. The nucleus which is present helps in the fusion of the male and female gamete. Mitochondria gives the energy, and the tail part helps in the movement. Tail part helps in the movement. This is how a sperm will look like. Now, what we actually studied is the different structures and or different structures, how these are beneficial in the formation of sperm. So one thing, testis is held within the scrotum, and this scrotum holds the testis. In the testis, there is formation of testosterone, which is an hormone, and there is formation of sperms. Okay. So now these sperms are under control of some structures, of some other structures, and that is nothing but the hormonal system, which we are going to study in detail tomorrow. Okay. So these structures are these hormones, the hormone testosterone and the formation of the sperm. They are under the control of master glands. So one master gland here is hypothalamus. Always remember among, I think few of you have told me in the last class, hypothalamus, pituitary, etc. So here, hypothalamus is one master gland which secretes gonadotropin releasing hormone, and that in turn will secrete follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone, which is present in anterior pituitary. Remember, it is HP. Hypothalamus will secrete some hormones from pituitary. So hypothalamus secretes gonadotropin releasing hormone, and this in turn will stimulate anterior pituitary gland to secrete follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone. And follicle stimulating hormone causes Sertoli cells to secrete antigen binding protein. So this will in turn help in spermatogenesis. And next, what we have seen, actually interstitial cells which are present within the testis, they will also secrete testosterone. So that will help in spermatogenesis. So the secretion of antigen binding protein will help in the formation of sperms, and the secretion of luteinizing hormone will help in the formation of testosterone. Okay, so for testosterone to release, gonadotropin releasing hormone has to secrete, then luteinizing hormone, then testosterone. So it is three hormones in relation, that is gonadotropin releasing hormone, luteinizing hormone, and testosterone. See, the gonadotropin hormone is in the brain, luteinizing hormone also is in the brain. That luteinizing hormone will send a message to the testis that testosterone hormone has to be released. So testosterone released from this side, and again gonadotropin hormone present in the hypothalamus will send a message to the anterior pituitary to stimulate follicle stimulating hormone, and that will stimulate antigen binding protein and will help in the formation of sperms. Okay, so spermatogenesis. Spermatogenesis is the process by which the sperms are formed. Okay, so this like it's everything what has to happen is under control of one or the other structure. So here important among the endocrine glands. So we are going to study about hormones in endocrine glands. So here we have an introduction to hypothalamus and anterior pituitary. Pituitary gland is having two lobes, anterior lobe and a posterior lobe. So it's anterior pituitary and posterior pituitary. So hypothalamus will send a signal to anterior pituitary. Anterior pituitary will secrete two hormones, that is follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone. Luteinizing hormone will help in the formation or release of testosterone. Follicle stimulation hormone will release antigen binding protein. These two together will help in the formation of sperms. And how is this controlled? Controlled is by negative feedback mechanism, that it sends a signal, negative signal, saying that you stop secreting testosterone and stop secreting inhibin. Okay. Next, some glands which help. Okay, seminal vesicles. These are a pair of structures present with to the prostate. What do? They secrete 60% of clear alkaline seminal fluid with fructose sugar, ATP, and prostaglandins for normal sperm nutrition and function chemicals for coagulation of semen. Okay, so this seminal vesicles, they secrete and they help in the nutrition of the sperm. Okay, and helps for the coagulation of the semen. Okay, so basically seminal vesicles give nutrition to the sperm. Next, coming to the prostate gland. You might have heard prostatomegaly. Okay, so this prostate gland secretes 30% of milky, slightly acidic seminal fluid with an antibiotic to kill bacteria. Okay, so seminal vesicles, they give nutrition to the sperm or to the semen. And next, seminal vesicles, the prostate gland secretes seminal fluid which protects the sperm. Next, coming to Cowper's glands, they are alkaline and they will help in lubricating the urethra. Just a question here: did you come across the structure called urethra?
Yes, ma'am.
Where?
Endocrine gland.
We are actually starting, or we have just got an introduction to endocrine glands today. Karan, any answer? See, remember, I'll give you a hint here. Genital organs and this thing, reproductive organs go hand in hand. Okay, just think of some system wherein we came across genital organs.
Excretory system.
Very good. It's the excretory system. So in excretory system, we read that, in the kidney, the urine is formed via nephrons. Through the ureter, it comes to the urinary bladder. Then from the bladder, it is evacuated out to the urethra. Okay. So here also we come across urethra. Through urethra, it is the passage of the urine and also the semen. It's the passage of the urine and the semen. Okay. Next, coming to what is the composition of semen. Semen is the mixture of sperms and seminal fluid. Okay. See, whenever we say semen, it is the sperm. The sperm is, just think of that structure, the head, midpiece and tail. Yeah, this. It is the semen is the seminal fluid. So semen comprises of the sperm and the seminal fluid. So sperm along with some fluid is the semen. Okay. The sperm is the head, midpiece and tail. Okay. Mixture of sperms and seminal fluid. 60% from seminal vesicles and 30% from prostate. The secretions in the previous slide we read. Slightly alkaline, milky appearance and sticky. It is slightly alkaline, milky appearance and sticky. Contains nutrients, clotting proteins and an antibiotic to protect the sperm. We read. Typical ejaculate is 2.5 to 5 ml in volume. Whenever there is ejaculation, whenever the semen is ejaculated, the quantity is 2.5 to 5 ml. Okay. Now, when we say 2.5 to 5 ml, what is this 5 ml? It is the seminal fluid along with the sperm. So this 5 ml is the like once ejaculation happens, this much amount of quantity is emitted out. Now, in 1 ml, how many sperms are present is the question. So, normal sperm count is 50 to 150 millions per ml. Remember this, 50 to 150 millions per ml. Actions of many sperm are needed for one to enter. If less than 20 millions per ml, then the person is considered to be sterile. He cannot beget a child. He cannot beget a child. Okay. So 50 to 150 millions per ml. Okay, per ml. So just think we have 5 ml in one ejaculate. So it is almost, at least considering the lower range, that is 50. So 250 millions in one ejaculate. Okay. So 50 to 150 millions per ml is the content, or it's the normal sperm count. Okay. So now just to summarize, scrotum holds the testis. In the testis is the formation of the spermatogenesis takes place, and also the hormone testosterone is formed under the influence of the hormones from the hypothalamus, anterior pituitary. Okay. So hormones from the hypothalamus is GnRH, that's the gonadotropin releasing hormone. Next, from anterior pituitary, it is the follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone. Follicle stimulating hormone secretes antigen binding protein, and then luteinizing hormone secretes testosterone, which together helps in the genesis or the formation of sperm Okay. So once the sperm is formed, then again we have some glands, the seminal vesicles and the Corpus glands, and also the prostate, which will help in the secretions, which may act as an antibiotic, which helps in maintaining the nourishment, which helps in the lubrication of urethra. This together forms the semen. Semen is nothing but the mixture of sperm and seminal fluid. In one ejaculate, there is 2.5 to 5 ml of semen ejaculated, and the normal count of a semen per ml is 50 to 150 million per ml. Okay. Next, moving on to female reproductive system. So ovaries, there we studied that the testis produces the this thing. What is that? The sperm. Similarly here, ovaries produce the oocytes or the ovum and hormones. There it was testosterone produced. Here, just see, we'll see what is that. Uterine tubes transport the eggs. Uterus where, okay, I'll just explain this with another thing. Okay. So ovary here is the structure. Okay. So this structure you might have come across ovarian cancer or ovarian cancer is of late flourishing or is becoming more predominant. So these ovaries are two structures. Ovaries are two structures wherein the oocytes are formed, or wherein the ovum is formed. Okay, and this is nothing but the fallopian tube. This is nothing but the fallopian tube. So this is nothing but the fallopian tube. Fallopian tube. Fallopian tube. Okay. Now, what happens here? Okay, ovaries are producing the ovum. Ovaries are producing the ovum. So this is the fallopian tube. Now, once a ovum is formed here, once a ovum is formed, it is taken up, or when the ovum is released during the ovulatory period. I'll just show you the path here. So this is traveled from this ovum which is formed here, travels and stays here. Okay, stays here. So this ovum comes here. So basically, I'll explain the parts. Okay, so this is ovary, this is the fallopian tube, and this whole thing is the uterus. This whole thing is the uterus. This is the uterus. Okay. Now, so it comes here. Okay, and through the vagina, there is the sperm which comes, which travels, and there is fusion. The sperm and ovum, they meet here. Okay, they meet here. Once they get good nourishment, again it is pushed through peristalsis and it gets implanted in the uterus. It gets implanted in the uterus. It is moved from the fallopian tube to the uterus. And in the uterus, the fertilized ovum further develops into the fetus, and fetus into further child. Okay, and again through this, it comes out through the normal labor or through the delivery. Or so ovaries produce the ovum. This ovum is traveled and it stays in mid part of the fallopian tube. And this fallopian, so here there is entry of the sperm, and there is fusion of the sperm and ovum to form the zygote. And this implanted zygote further moves and stays in the uterus. It further grows, develops, etc., etc. After it has developed, and after completion of the 9 months and 8 days, it is ready for parturition. That is, it is ready to be expelled out. Then it travels back and it is delivered out of the vagina. It is delivered out of the vagina in case of normal delivery. Or if it is a cesarean section, then it is cut open and extracted from the uterus. Clear? Okay, so moving to the structures here. Ovaries produce oocytes of the ovum and the hormones. Uterine tubes, that is the fallopian tubes, transport the eggs, that is nothing but the ovum. Uterus, where fetal development occurs. Vagina or the birth canal. External genitalia constitute the vulva. The mammary glands produce milk. So next, coming to the ovaries, pair of organs size of unshelled almonds in upper pelvic region. They are in the upper pelvic region. Next, so now I told you that ovum is formed in the ovary. So in the testis, there was ovary. In the testis, the sperm was being formed. In the ovary, it is the ovum which is being formed. Now, how is it formed? Ovarian follicles contain oocytes, that is the egg cells, in various stages of development. Okay, and they secrete estrogen that helps in function and growth of the uterine lining, regulation of monthly female cycles, that is nothing but menstruation, female sexual characters, and maintenance of bone or the growth of bone. That's how in old age, wherein the menopause happens, where the bleeding stops, people tend to suffer from bone issues. Okay, it is because there is a relation between the estrogens and the bone. Okay, the mature Graphene follicle releases an oocyte each month during ovulation. I think few of the females here may know this. Okay, now what happens? The ovary contains the ovarian follicles, and these ovarian follicles, they contain the oocytes, and Once the oocytes become mature, they are called as Graphene follicles. This Graphene follicles ruptures and releases the ovum. Graphene follicle ruptures and it releases the ovum, and that period is called as ovulation. So once it is ruptured, once the ovulation happens and the oocyte is released, what will happen? Now there is something called as the Graphene follicle. The Graphene follicle is now called as Corpus Luteum. Graphene follicle. See, Graphene follicle was a follicle along with the oocyte. Once the oocyte comes out, then it is called as a Corpus Luteum. Now this Corpus Luteum secretes certain hormones. What are they? See, progesterone completes the preparation of uterine lining. Estrogen works with progesterone. Relaxin relaxes the uterine muscles and pubic symphysis. Inhibin decreases secretion of FSH and LH. Next, Corpus luteum at one stage it dies and it's called as Corpus albicans. See, these are all the process of how a oocyte is released. Hope you are able to understand. Okay. Okay. Next, coming to uterine tubes are the fallopian tubes. So here I explained in the previous slide also. Here, so here this is the fallopian tube. This is the fallopian tube. Here is the fallopian tube. Okay, so this is the fallopian tube. This particular fallopian tube has 4 parts. What are they? Fallopian tube has 4 parts. So this end, see, it is having a projections here. See, this is having projections like this. So it is called as a fimbriated end or a fimbriae. Okay, so this fimbriated end, what it will do, it will pick up the ovary or it will pick up the ovum. See, the released ovum from the Graphene follicle. Once the ovulation has happened, the ovum is released, okay, through the Graphene follicle. Now that released ovum is being picked up by the fimbriated end of the fallopian tube. This fimbriated end, further it is called as the infundibulum. Next it is called as the ampulla. Next it is called as the isthmus. Okay, so these are 4 structures of the fallopian tube. 4 structures of the fallopian tube. Now fimbria are nothing but finger-like projections, okay, which help in transporting the ovum, the released ovum, into the fallopian tube. Infundibulum is an open funnel-shaped portion near the ovary. Ampulla is the central region of the tube. Isthmus is the narrowest part. Just remember, this fallopian tube has 4 parts: the fibria, infundibulum, ampulla, and isthmus. And it is at the level of ampia that there is fusion of male and female gamete. Fusion of male and female gamete. And then it is further brought into the uterine cavity. It's further brought into the uterine cavity where the implantation takes place. Okay. This is one structure. This yellow color, what you can see here in the background, they are nothing but the ligaments. So just you have to remember structures here. One is the ovary, the other is the fallopian tube. This whole thing is the uterus. Okay. There are pair of fallopian tubes. This is the ovary. Ovaries are held by ligaments. Okay. Now, if you have to remember, have you come across uterine fibroid? Nobody has come across uterine fibroid. Have you come across polycystic ovaries?
No.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so somebody says they have come across polycystic ovaries. So polycystic ovaries are the ones where I told you oocytes are formed in the ovum. Now this Graphene follicle, which is supposed to rupture, that is not rupturing and they remain as cysts. When I say they remain as cysts, they are remaining within the ovary. So here there will be cysts, multiple cysts, like garland-like pearl appearance. Okay, so these are nothing but the cysts. It is a problem with the ovary. And the endocrinal system. When I said uterine fibroid may be anywhere here. It may be here within the uterus, It may be within the metrium. Okay, myometrium or the it may be within the endometrium or it may be within the myometrium. This is the endometrium. This is the myometrium. Okay. Functions of what is happening in the fallopian tube. Fimbria sweep oocyte into tube. Cilia and peristalsis move it along. Sperm reaches oocyte in ampulla. Fertilization occurs within 24 hours after ovulation. Zygote reaches uterus about 7 days after ovulation. Okay. So what it is doing, the function of each. So that fimbriated end, it travels it in up till the ampulla, and there is fusion. Okay. Now whatever is fertilized is it is fusing with the male gamete, that is the sperm. Okay. It is alive or it is functional only for 24 hours. Okay. Once the ovum is released, it is functional for 24 hours. Within the 24 hours, if there is fusion with the male gamete, then the sperm, then the zygote is formed. This zygote which is formed is it reaches the uterus 7 days after ovulation. 7 days after ovulation. Okay. Now coming to the uterus. Uterus is the site of menstruation and development of fetus. Two functions: menstruation and development of fetus. Now you can just, it is easy to remember this. I as a student always was happy to tell the measurements. 3 into 2 into 1, 3 inch into 2 inch into 1 inch. Okay. So it is 3 inch long, 2 inch wide and 1 inch thick. So just think it is in inches. So when we talk about this in inches, it is a non-pregnant uterus. It's a non-pregnant uterus. Okay. This is subdivided into fundus, body and cervix. I'll just explain that. Inferiorly contains uterine cavity accessed by cervical canal. So this is nothing but this is the fundus, body, cervix. Fundus, body and cervix, 3 parts. Fundus, body and cervix. Okay. So this is the place where the birth happens, or the implantation, where implantation is going to take place after 7 days of fusion. And this is the place where you're going to have the monthly bleeding, monthly menstrual bleed. This endometrial layer is there, right? The inner layer, it will shed. Once it sheds, then the menstrual bleed happens. If it is not shedding properly, then there is scanty menstrual flow. If it is not at all shedding, then there is no menstruation. Fundus, body and cervix, I told you. Yeah. This uterus is having 3 layers: endometrium, myometrium and perimetrium. Endometrium, I showed you the innermost layer. Myometrium and perimetrium. Endometrium functional layer shed during menstruation. Basal layer replaces functional layer each month. Myometrium is smooth muscles. Perimetrium is the peritoneum. I'll just explain. Myometrium. The final layer is the perimetrium. Okay, so endometrium is the one which will shed during menstruation, or endometrial layer is the layer which is going to be in contact or which helps in the development of the fetus. Myometrium gives the muscular support. Perimetrium connects it to the visceral organs, connects it to the ovary, connects it to the peritoneum, etc. Have you come across pelvis while reading bones?
Yes.
Yes. So I told you about a hip bone and a sacrum coccyx. Can anybody recollect that? Hip bone, sacrum and coccyx. I had asked you to feel the hip bone in the anterior part of the body. Okay, I'll just have a question for you. See, I told you, heart and lungs are protected by which structures?
Rib cage.
Very good. So heart and lungs are protected by the rib cage. Next, moving to the abdominal organs. See, abdominal organs like, it may be the digestive system, pancreas, liver, kidneys, etc. They are protected by the peritoneum and also the 4 layers of abdominal muscles. Now, question arises, how is the uterus protected? Yes, so Karan says pelvis, very good, clap for him. A uterus is a pelvic organ unless there is development of the fetus. So when it is non-pregnant, it is in the pelvis. When it is pregnant, it becomes an abdominal organ. When the uterus is non-pregnant, it is a pelvic organ. When uterus becomes, or when uterus is having an implantation of the fetus, then it becomes an abdominal organ. And hence you see the development of the enlargement of the abdomen in pregnant ladies. So initially it is a pelvic organ, later it becomes an abdominal organ. Okay, so just remember the sizes, it is 3 into 2 into 1, and it gives birth to at least minimum 2.5 kg weight baby. Hats off to God's creations. Okay, so I just showed you these 3 layers. Okay, next coming to the vagina, it is passageway for birth and menstrual flow and intercourse. It is 4-inch long fibromuscular organ ending at cervix, lies between urinary bladder and rectum. Urinary bladder and rectum. Orifice partially closed with membrane, that's hymen. That's hymen. Only it is usually at the first intercourse that the hymen ruptures. It's first intercourse that the hymen ruptures. So it lies between the urinary bladder and rectum. Next, moving on to another important organ, that's the mammary gland. So what is this mammary gland? It's the modified sweat gland that produces milk, and this production of milk is called as lactation. We call it as lactation period. When the mother is in the feeding stage, we call her as a lactating mother. Now, what determines the size of the breast is the amount of adipose tissue that's been present. Now, these mammary glands, what is the important function of mammary glands is they secrete milk. They secrete milk. Okay. Next, another few structures. So you can just see here. This is the structure of a mammary gland. See, through the alveoli, in the alveoli, the milk secretion is happening under the influence of prolactin hormone. So this which milk is formed is coming through the lactiferous sinus and is emptying through the lactiferous duct and exiting out of the nipple. Okay. Okay, just a question here. We came across alveoli somewhere.
Lungs.
Very good, very good, very good class. Nice. Yeah, lungs. So there they were the basic structure. So here also alveoli is the structure which helps in the production of milk. Now, physiology of the breast, milk production and secretion. As you always remember, we have testosterone there. So here we have estrogen and progesterone. Okay. Estrogen develops the duct system in the breast. Okay, the lactiferous ducts. This lactiferous duct, lactiferous sinus. Okay. Estrogen develops the duct system in the breast. Progesterone develops the milk secreting glands, which are called as alveoli. So estrogen will help in the formation of ducts. Progesterone will help in the formation of alveoli. This alveoli will secrete milk. Now, prolactin stimulates milk synthesis in the alveoli. Now, we know that alveoli is helpful, like how I said, testis. In testis, it is seminiferous ducts or seminiferous tubules which help in the formation of semen. Similarly, here it is the alveoli. Now, this alveoli is functional under the influence of hormone progesterone. Okay. Now, alveoli will help, or alveoli are formed under the influence of progesterone. Now this progesterone, now these alveoli are formed. Now that the alveoli are formed, now alveoli has to start synthesis of preparation, or has to start preparation of milk. How is this preparation of milk is formed? Is under the influence of hormone prolactin. Under the influence of hormone prolactin. Now the milk which is formed has to come out of the nipple. How it is coming out is through the oxytocin. It is through the oxytocin. Okay. Now here we came across four structures: estrogen, progesterone, prolactin, and oxytocin. So estrogen and progesterone, they form the anatomy there. So what you want, imagine you want to prepare a tea. So what is that? You prepare the raw drugs. What you keep tea, sugar, you keep milk, and if you want to add water, you keep these ingredients. So the primary preparation of the ingredients is done here by estrogen and progesterone. What it wants the ducts in the breast. So lactiferous ducts are formed. It wants the alveoli in the breast. So it forms the alveoli. Next, now you want to prepare a tea. What do? You need to put it in right proportions, and you need to ignite. You need to give some heat. So when you give heat, the tea starts boiling. Okay. Similarly here, that function. Okay. So the what you call the base is formed by preparing alveoli and the ducts. Next, with the help of the hormone prolactin, milk synthesis happens. The formation of milk happens in the alveoli. Once the alveoli has formed the milk, now that milk formed within the breast has to be ejected out through the lactiferous ducts. That through the duct they open into the nipple. Through the nipple, the milk is ejected out. Okay. So estrogen, progesterone, prolactin, and oxytocin. Just a sucking reflex by the baby. Okay. Just a sucking reflex by the baby will send an information to prolactin. Prolactin will help in synthesis, and that will help in prolactin will, once the milk is formed, it will send a signal to oxytocin that it has to be released out through the nipple. Now, physiology of mammary glands. Nursing stimulates the hypothalamus to produce oxytocin. Oxytocin secreted from the posterior pituitary. There we came across anterior pituitary. Okay. Now here, posterior pituitary, oxytocin causes smooth muscles around alveoli to contract and squeeze milk into lactiferous ducts, lactiferous sinuses, and into the nipple. I'll just show this. Once there is sucking reflex by the baby, then that will give a signal to the posterior pituitary. Posterior pituitary will secrete. Okay. So here alveoli, they form the milk, and that is emptied into lactiferous sinus. That's emptied into lactiferous sinus, the gap. Through lactiferous duct, it opens into the nipple. So many such things will have to do. So all the lactiferous ducts, all the lactiferous sinuses, they end up in duct, and these ducts open at the nipple. So this is all happening under the influence of oxytocin. Okay. Now, how does the female reproductive cycle function? Okay. So through this, what is happening? Controlled by monthly hormonal cycle from the hypothalamus, anterior pituitary, and ovary. So again, here we have hypothalamus and pituitary in common, like the male reproductive system. Okay, so the hormones or the endocrine glands involved are hypothalamus and pituitary. So here it's hypothalamus and anterior pituitary. Okay, and next ovary. So monthly cycle changes in ovary and uterus. How is this happening? So the monthly menstruation changes. How is it happening in the female reproductive system? So for the menstruation to happen, there are changes happening in the ovary and changes happening in the uterus. So ovarian cycle and the uterine cycle. Okay. There are changes happening in the ovary there are changes happening in the uterus. Okay. Now, what do these do? See, this ovary has to release the ovum. Okay, ovary has to release the ovum. Ovum is released. If it does not fuse the sperm, then it will just come here, and this endometrium will shed, and menstruation will happen. Okay. If ovary is releasing ovum, there is fertilization, then the implantation will happen, and this will not shed. This will not shed. Okay. Now, how this is happening scientifically, we will. Major function of the ovary is to prepare the oocyte or the ovum. That ovum has to be picked up by the fimbriated end of the fallopian tube, and it is moved in the ampulla, and there is fusion of male and female gamete. Then it comes and it gets implanted in the uterus. Okay, this is one part. If there is no implantation, if there is no female and male fusion of the gamete, then what will happen? It will come and this endometrium will shed and the bleeding will happen. Okay. I didn't mention this. So this uterus, if there the fusion of the male and female gamete happens, then uterus also will prepare itself to receive the implanted or receive the zygote. So receive the zygote. If it does not happen, then it will prepare itself for menstruation. It will prepare itself for menstruation. Okay. Now again, we have to come across hormones. So gonadotropic releasing hormone from the hypothalamus controls the female reproductive system. What it does, it stimulates the anterior pituitary to secrete two hormones, FSH and LH, follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone. Follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone target the ovaries and drive the ovarian cycle. So this GnRH, that's the gonadotropin releasing hormone, will have an impact on the FSH and LH of the anterior pituitary. Now this FSH and LH, they will have an impact on the ovaries. Okay. Next, estrogen and progesterone from the ovaries drive the uterine cycle. Estrogen and progesterone from the ovaries, they drive the uterine cycle. Okay. So gonadotropin releasing hormone, FSH and LH, next estrogen and progesterone in 3 levels. GnRH, the gonadotropin releasing hormone, is in the brain. Next, FSH and LH are also in the brain. Next, they have an impact on a structure, that's the ovaries, and they in turn will secrete estrogen and progesterone. Okay. Now, what happens in the ovaries? The ovaries, the almond-shaped structures. What happens in them? It has something called as a follicular phase and an ovulatory phase. So, follicular phase. Now, for follicular phase to happen, it has to happen through GnRH. GnRH will secrete FSH. Now, what is this FSH doing? FSH from anterior pituitary stimulates follicles growth. Follicle growth. Follicles grow into Graphene follicle. Okay. Okay. Next, granulosa cells of the follicle secrete estrogen and inhibin. Increased level of estrogens and inhibit FSH. Increasing estrogens also stimulate secretion of LH. Okay. Okay, just think here. FSH will help in stimulation of follicles, and follicles, they mature. Assuming there is a small cell, this small cell matures. When this matures, then for that it is the increasing estrogen will secrete LH, that's the luteinizing hormone. Okay. When LH, the luteinizing hormone, stimulates the rupture of Graphene follicle. Okay. So there is one follicle, it matures, it grows big at one particular stage. When this grows big, it is the LH which helps in opening it out, Just imagine you have sowed one seed in soil. It is the extreme heat which helps in rupturing or breaking out the earth and coming out and sprouting. So similarly here, it is under the influence of luteinizing hormone, which stimulates the rupture of Graphene follicle and release of oocyte from ovary to the pelvic cavity. I explained you there in the previous structure. It is that ovary. I'll just go back. Okay, question to all of you. What does ovary do? Is everyone there?
Forms eggs.
Yeah, yeah. See, sperm, very good. I appreciate your attempt. Sperm is the male structure. Ovum is the female structure. Okay. So ovary will produce the ovum. Now this ovary is producing ovum under the influence of an hormone, that is the follicle stimulating hormone. Okay. Now what happens? It is there in one particular structure. Now that particular structure has to open. Okay, that particular structure has to open. So that opening of that particular structure and release of what is inside it is through another hormone called as luteinizing hormone. Once this is released, now this graphene, so the matured follicle is called as the graphene follicle. So that when the LH acts on it, then it opens. Once that opens and oocyte is released, that's nothing but ovulation period. It is released, then this fimbriated end picks it up and gets it here. Okay. Now, LH stimulates the rupture of graphene follicle and release of oocyte from ovary into the pelvic cavity. Okay, fimbria of fallopian tube picks the ovulated oocyte. So, graphene follicle is a matured oocyte or matured follicle that is, FSH, under the influence of FSH, the oocytes start forming. Okay, now these oocytes are in the graphene follicle. So, once the graphene follicle ruptures, the oocyte is released. Once the oocyte is released, it is the fimbriated end of the fallopian tube which travels and brings it to the uterus, Now, let's coming to the luteal phase, that is the post-ovulatory phase. LH stimulates development of corpus luteum from ovulated or ruptured follicles. Okay, so this LH is helping in rupture of the graphene follicle and release, and also it is helping in the development of corpus luteum. This corpus luteum secretes estrogen and progesterone. So this corpus luteum secretes, so in the previous slide we read that there are estrogen and progesterone formed in the ovary. Okay, so corpus luteum secretes estrogen and progesterone. So progesterone prepares endometrium for possible pregnancy. Okay, if there is fusion of male and female gamete, then progesterone will start acting so that it has to help in the maintaining the endometrial lining. If pregnancy is not happening, then it will shed, the progesterone will reduce and endometrial shedding will happen. Okay, see here you can see follicular phase, ovulation phase and the luteal phase. Okay, so follicular phase, ovulation phase and the luteal phase. So in the follicular phase, the hormone that is going to be very predominant is follicle stimulating hormone. So FSH, LH, and here it will be progesterone if pregnancy continues. So 3 phases which happens, or see, you remember here 2 structures. One is the uterus, one is the ovary. Okay, ovary were those 2 small almond-like structures. How many uterus do a women have? Okay, I say there are 2 ovaries and dash uterus. How many uterus? I'll show you the image. After seeing the image, answer. Until then, nobody answer.
One uterus, no?
I don't know. I want all your friends to answer because I know it's a little difficult. Yes. So one of your friends said it's 1 uterus. So how many of you agree with that? Karan says 1. I want all of you to answer because it's one basic thing which all should know. Yes. Everybody has mentioned 1 uterus. Yes. You might have come across. Yeah. Good. All of you good. So you might have come across that there is something called as removal of uterus, hysterectomy operation, when somebody complains of excessive bleeding or somebody complains of a uterine fibroid, that the uterus is being removed. Have you come across that? No.
No.
Okay. So
I've heard about it.
Okay. So see, just for practical understanding, if uterus was being removed, then that wouldn't be a great issue. If we had 2 uterus, we are having just 1 uterus. Okay, and this removal of this uterus, many times it is just the uterus, or sometimes it is with the fallopian tube and the ovaries, or sometimes with the fallopian tube preserving the ovaries. Okay. Okay. So here mainly we have three phases: follicular phase, ovulatory phase, and luteal phase. Follicular phase, it is the FSH. Ovulation phase, it is the LH. And again the luteal phase, if there is pregnancy, the progesterone will increase. If there is no fusion of male and female gamete, progesterone will reduce, and then there is shedding of the menstrual blood. These are the changes happening in the ovary. Ovary has three stages of changes. Next, coming to the changes what we see in the uterus. So these will go simultaneously: follicular, ovulatory, luteal. So here simultaneously proliferative, secretory, and menstrual. Proliferatory, secretory, and menstrual. Okay, these three phases go hand in hand. Now, proliferatory phase, rising estrogen levels from the growing follicles stimulates growth of the functional layer of endometrium to 4 to 10 mm thickness. So what happens? See, there under the influence of follicle stimulating hormone, there is growth of the follicles. I told you the oocytes tend to form. So when that is happening there, here simultaneously what's happening in uterus? Uterus is increasing its thickness. Uterus is increasing its thickness. When oocytes start forming here, then simultaneously uterus, what it is telling, uterus thinks there may be chance of conception. So it starts increasing the thickness here. Okay. Before the oocyte started forming here, the endometrial lining had reduced and gone down because of menstruation. Once the menstruation has stopped, again the endometrial thickening starts. Okay. Next, after proliferatory, it is secretory. Corpus luteum of ovary secretes progesterone. What does progesterone do? Increases thickening of the functional layer of endometrium to 12 to 18 mm. So initially, under the level of estrogen, it was 4 to 10 mm thickness. Now under the influence of progesterone, it becomes 12 to 18 mm thickness. Increases blood supply to the endometrium. Endometrium gets more blood supply. Growth of endometrial glands and secretion of uterine milk. Okay. So remember, in the proliferative phase, it is the estrogen which is acting and which increases, or see, there is a formation of bed. See, you want to sow a seed, you in a pot you put layer of mud, or you do alternative layers of fertilizer, mud, etc., etc. So you form one particular bed. Okay, and the day you are going to actually sow the seed, what are you going to do? You are going to check how it is, and also you may increase the thickness of the soil. So similarly here, so estrogen levels are the follicle stimulating hormone is causing the formation of oocytes. So at that time in proliferative phase here, estrogen is released and it is causing a thickness in the endometrial layer. Okay, as the graphene follicle is rupturing there, so simultaneously what it is doing here, it is thinking, yes, the matured or the zygote may come and land up here, let me prepare well. So what it does, it again increases the thickening of the endometrial layer. So it increases by another 2 to 8 mm. So it becomes 12 to 18 mm. And again, so the uterus is receiving much blood supply, because if the baby comes, then it needs blood supply, increased blood supply to the endometrium. Okay. Next, there was no fusion of the male and female gamete, and hence what happens? Menstrual phase, decline in progesterone levels. Okay, so there was estrogen which caused 4 to 10 mm thickness. There was progesterone which increased it to 12 to 18 mm thickness. Then there was no fusion of the male and female gamete. There was no implantation. Then the brain gets a signal that progesterone has to be reduced. Once progesterone reduces, then the endometrial thickening which had increased, it sheds down, and the bleeding happens. That is the menstrual cycle. Okay, so the menstruation, so the uterine cycle has three phases: proliferate is to grow, proliferate, secretory, and menstrual phase. Proliferative, secretory, and menstrual phase. You just see from here. So proliferative phase, so 8 to 10 mm thickness, ovulation has happened, if at all ovulation happens, ovulatory phase in between. Next, in the next phase, that is the secretory phase, it increases to 12 to 18 mm thickness. If this released ovum, if it does not fuse with the male and female gamete, then what it will do, progesterone which was increased in this phase will decrease, and this will cause destruction of the endometrial layer, and it shuts off as menstruation. So this is previous here also, the pregnancy didn't happen, so menstruation took place, and the next cycle, so that's the pre-ovulatory phase. See, I think the females may be knowing your cycles are usually 28 to 32 days cycle. So what is happening? Assuming this is the periods are over. Periods, assuming person X got periods on day 1 of August. Person X got periods on day 1 of August. From 1st to 5th August there will be bleeding. Now 5th to 13th August proliferative phase is happening. That is under the influence of estrogen. The endometrial thickness is increasing, okay, and there is a chance of ovulation under the influence of LH, okay. Because of LH, that graphene follicle is releasing the oocyte, that's ovulation. And next, once this ovulation has happened, if there is sexual intercourse, then there is implantation, or else what happens, this progesterone is indirectly preparing the endometrial or increasing the thickness, okay. Pregnancy didn't happen, and hence progesterone reduced and menstruation took place. This is how it's happening. So the first 3 to 5 days is the menstruation. Next is the proliferative phase. Next is the secretory phase. Again at secretory phase, if there is no fusion of male and female gamete, then again menstruation. Now let us see in comparison with the ovarian and menstrual cycle. The ovarian cycles, so that is in the follicular phase, the follicles are formed. In the luteal phase, the corpus luteum has to rupture, okay. If that's not happening, then it sheds off. So similarly here we have pre-ovulatory, or we have proliferative, secretory, and menstruation. So when here it is follicular phase, here it is proliferatory phase, okay. So here the endometrial thickening is partially there, further it increases. If there is no pregnancy, then it breaks down. Yeah. Now, if no pregnancy, increasing levels of progesterone cause negative feedback that inhibit LH secretion. After about 2 weeks, corpus luteum atrophies to corpus albicans. Progesterone and estrogen levels decline. So a functional layer of endometrium discharged into first 5 days of next cycle. So if there was no pregnancy, estrogen and progesterone levels decrease. Once they decrease, the endometrium, which had become thick, you remember it had become to 12 to 18 mm, that breaks down and forms as the periods, or the menstrual cycle. Now, how do we start the next cycle? With the decline in progesterone and estrogen and inhibin, so inhibition of GnRH, that's a gonadotropin releasing hormone, follicle stimulating hormone, and luteinizing hormone stops. Renewed secretion of these hormones starts a new cycle of growth and preparation in ovaries and uterus. Now, if pregnancy had happened, what happened? If fertilization took place, embryo implants in endometrium. Hope you're able to recollect endometrium. What is endometrium? Lining of uterus. Very good, very good. I told you there are 3 layers of the uterus: endometrium, myometrium, perimetrium. Okay, so I'll just explain one thing. See, check if you have understood at least that at the end of the session. So this ovaries, they release oocytes, that is picked up from the fimbriated end of the fallopian tube, and that is, if there is fusion of the male and female gamete, then after 5 to 7 days it is transplanted and shifted here. This movement from here to here and staying here in the uterus, this is all ovary and fallopian tube. Moving here and staying here is called as the implantation. It is planted there. It is transplanted from somewhere and brought and kept here. So this is the myometrium. Inner layer is the endometrium. This is myometrium. This is perimetrium. So this endometrium holds or prepares the bed for the reception of the fused zygote. So if sexual intercourse happened, there was fusion of the male and female gamete, a zygote was formed. The zygote which is formed is transplanted or is implanted in the endometrium. Then this is happening because of the influence of progesterone. This is happening for the under the influence of progesterone. So under the influence of progesterone it is happening, and the pregnancy further continues. I'll just skip these. Thank you. So before I conclude, hope everybody is clear with this. So oocyte ovum is released from this. It is picked up from the fimbriated end of the fallopian tube, and if there is fusion, then that's implanted here. Okay, clear. Next, if there is the ovum is released, but if there is no implantation, if there is no fusion of male and female gamete, then this particular region will shed. It will break, and it will come out as the menstrual fluid. Next, here there is formation of the ovum that is released, and from here you get an entry of the sperm. It travels and meets here. There's formation of zygote. Formed zygote will come and stay here, and the progesterone will nourish and take care of the baby. Clear? Yes or no? Coming to the mammary glands, here it is the alveoli. Here it is the alveoli, these structures. Okay, these structures, they secrete or they form milk, and it is that formed milk under the influence of prolactin is the milk is formed under the influence of prolactin. Then under the influence of oxytocin, it is emitted out through the lactiferous sinus, lactiferous duct, then to the nipple. Sinus, duct, and to the nipple. It is evacuated out under the influence of hormone oxytocin. Prolactin forms the milk. Oxytocin ejects the milk. It gives away the milk, throws out the milk, emits the milk. Thank you. Okay, did you understand at least 20%? Okay, you only tell me how much you understood. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being highest and 1 being least, how much do you people understand? Karan says 8. Thank you. Somebody has written maybe 6. I skipped the message. Yeah. Nivedita is there today. Did you understand, dear? I just take a few names which I am familiar with. Others don't be offended. Okay, Nivedita also has understood. I assume you have understood. I have put in my efforts to make you understand the process. And tomorrow, the next class will be on Wednesday. And in that we are going to study endocrine system. It will be something like this or a little more tougher. Just be mentally prepared and remember, try to grasp things. Okay. Yes. So shall I end the session? Sir, shall I end the session?
Yeah.
There's no class tomorrow. My class will be directly on Wednesday. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
If there are any changes, we'll keep you posted in the group. Yeah,
Thank you,
thank you
ma'am.
one and all. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, madam.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.